Hello and welcome to the Leopard Lair. I'm John Aljancic, and tonight we have a chance to talk to our new girls golf coach, Bart Keiser. Bart, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so Bart, not born but raised in Louisville.
Right.
Tell us about growing up in Louisville. And Bart's a 1971 graduate of Louisville High School.
Well, my father was a minister in Paradise Church, and so a lot of kids knew me as the preacher's kid. But it was a great time. Those were the times when you put a baseball glove over your handlebar of your bicycle, left for the day. Your mom called you at 5 o'clock. If you didn't come, you didn't have supper. Neighbors looked out for each other. We played baseball and basketball all year round. Greg Parrish was, at then, one of those guys that we kind of hung out with and showed us the ropes growing up. So it was a great time in Louisville. Couldn't have been better.
That's awesome. So growing up playing football, basketball, baseball, seems like basketball went pretty well for you. Bart was the single game scoring record holder in Louisville varsity boys history until just a handful of years ago. Chris Libator actually wound up breaking the record, but Bart scored 49 points back in 1970 against a very good Oakwood team. Bart, take us back to that night in the winter of 1970.
I remember distinctly the night, and they actually gave me the 8mm film from the game that's moved to CD and now to something else, whatever form I can put it on. But it started out pretty slow. I had 14 points in the first period, 2 points in the second period. So I only had 16 points, and I had 33 in the second half. And it just lit up. And those were the days before the three-point line. So I don't know what that number would have been. But I remember, instead of there being jealousy, guys like Thane Bolden and Greg Graham made an extra effort to make the extra pass that they didn't have to. So I couldn't be more thankful for them. But it was just fun. It was I didn't feel like I was doing anything out of the ordinary until about 30 seconds left in the game. The coach said, "Hey, do you know you have?" And I said, "No." So it was a blast. But I couldn't do it without the guys that were around me. It was Harry Manis played for Oakwood, and he and I had some personal competition, and so it was really good to beat Harry Manis in Oakwood.
I think you won that night. Let's put it that way. So, all right, well, those basketball exploits then take you to West Point.
Yes.
To be the first Division I basketball player from the Louisville basketball program. But kind of an interesting segue to get to West Point. Can you tell us who the guy was who was recruiting you at the time?
Well, I actually found a letter tonight.
Okay.
Behind the scenes, Coach Catalano had been talking to West Point, and the coach at West Point was Bobby Knight. So in this fall of 1970, the letter shows the history that Coach Catalano wrote to Bobby Knight, explained who I was, and invited him to come down and see me. So until that point, I really didn't know much about West Point, or I probably didn't know that it even existed coming from Louisville. But it was I played a pretty good game. I remember that night my dad taking me home and said, "Go put a tie on." And I said, "Why am I putting a tie on at 10 o'clock at night?" And Mr. Catalano and two representatives from West Point, the coach and one of the captains, sat in my living room, and Dad just said, "Be quiet, smile, listen, because this isn't going to happen again."
Yep.
So it was wonderful.
That's incredible. So, was it an easy choice for you to go to West Point? Like, did that make an impression on you that night?
It did, but being a cocky 18-year-old kid, I said to the coach, he said, "Look, I'm not going anywhere if I don't get a chance to see the campus." And so I went up. They took me up with several other recruits from different sports. It was a beautiful day. The grounds were gorgeous. They had a beautiful military parade. The grandstands were filled with beautiful women. And I said, "This is the place for me."
That doesn't hurt.
I went back 3 weeks later. There was not a woman in sight. It was all graduation weekend. West Point was all boys until after I graduated. So I took the bait and
So they got the small town kid with wet behind his ears. They
That's
snookered you
right.
there, huh?
That's exactly right.
Well, it seems like it worked out well, though.
It did.
Had a great
It
career at
did.
West Point. Had a 20-year or 23-year, I believe, career in the military, right?
Correct.
Tell us about that journey. Playing at West Point, graduating, and then spending 23 years in the military.
Well, first, can't say anything without complimenting my wife, because it takes a special wife to move. We moved 19 times in 23 years.
Wow.
So it takes a special spouse to live that and raise our kids, because there would be points where I was gone 6 or 7 months at a time. She'd wake up, I wouldn't be there. My bags were packed and gone. But it was a wonderful experience for my kids to see the world, to see that Louisville, that New York, that isn't the hub of the world. I mean, there's more to be seen. Working with young men, 24/7, 365, knowing that after 23 years, none of my soldiers died from any accidents or from combat, is a banner that I will keep, kind of knowing that I did the best I could, and that's as good as it gets.
That's fantastic. So all good things must come to an end. You
Yes.
retire from the Army, and then that transition that into a 20-year career at IBM as an executive. Can you kind of take us through what kind of role you had there?
A couple of highlight roles. I was the operations business manager for the IBM account with AT&T. At the time, IBM was AT&T's biggest client, and AT&T was IBM's biggest client. We happened to be at the AT&T headquarters, which was four to 8 miles, guessing from ground zero, and we were there at 9/11.
Wow.
So we got the word, and we watched it on television, and the boss said, "Everybody home." So I had one of my hockey players actually died as a fireman going up the steps. You can read about it. It's a red bandana. One of my players, after I was done coaching, of course, passed away as a fireman. But I did that, and then I traveled a lot to Beijing, to Kuala Lumpur, to Palo Alto, doing software installation for time management and payroll. So that was how I spent the last 10 years of my career there.
Cool. That's awesome. So, okay, so we've kind of gone through your life up to this point. And obviously a 23-year career in the military, working a lot with young men.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like at IBM, you were coaching basketball, coaching hockey, obviously not for IBM, but
Yeah.
on the side. But obviously a heart and a passion for kids. So,
Absolutely.
So that brings you to the here and now.
Yes.
Getting ready to take over a girls golf program that's been very successful the last number of years, making it to state 2 years ago, and this past year falling just short, knocking on the door of state once again. But now a completely different team, a whole cast of characters graduating, and now bringing a whole nother crew in. But can you first tell us, retired now, it's time to go golfing. But instead, which I'm sure you'll golf a little bit too, but instead you decide to take over, throw your name in the hat to take over a girls golf program. Why?
Well, you kind of summed it up. Any sport, whether you're coaching basketball, baseball, tennis, golf, being around young men and women really does a lot to keep you young and keep your personality young and give you connection with the next generation. I've always said, and I was always taught, that the treasury of the United States lies in the next generation. I got this opportunity quite by accident, and I'm looking forward to it. I wanted to give back. I think I have something to give to these girls, and I think I can help the program. And the opportunity fit right in with a void in my lifestyle, and it just felt like it was the right thing to do.
That's awesome. So taking over a new team, again, with a whole new cast of girls about to be in the starting lineup. I know you've just been named the coach just a little bit ago, so I know you're not overly familiar with the girls coming back, but familiar with some. But What kind of advice do you have for them? Because obviously there's big shoes to fill, you know, for a very talented senior class that's about to graduate. But you know, as a new coach, what are you telling your girls as the season starts up?
Not to underestimate themselves. They haven't had the experience, the opportunity to excel, because the senior class was so dominant, and they were behind them for a couple of years. This is their team. They get to make their own mark, and they can't afford to underestimate their own potential. That comes with practice, that comes with rehearsal, and that comes with getting your feet wet in a couple of matches early in the year. But I have every expectation that this crowd can make their mark. They're not going to be last year's team, and I don't want them to be. I want them to be their own team, and I think they can do it.
I'm looking forward to seeing how well they do, and I'm looking forward to seeing your fingerprint all over this program. So can you tell us a little bit about, I know you have like a fundraiser coming up, obviously not, we're still in the dead of winter, but coming up this summer in terms of being able to help the girls program as well as the boys golf program and the basketball program. Can you explain more about that?
Yeah, I can. It fits right in with being accepted by with a coaching program. The boys basketball coach and the boys golf coach have both invited me to our team to be part of their fundraiser. They've been very successful, and by joining forces with them, it takes some of the administrative responsibility away from my parents, who didn't get to do a lot of that because, for the same reason, the girls didn't get a lot of experience. There was a senior class of parents that had the pieces and ran with the pieces. So this is a good way for us to get our feet wet at fundraising, to do well. If we're anywhere near as successful as the boys' teams have been, it will be successful for us, and let us start off on our own track and our own journey. But I couldn't be more thankful for Tom Siegfried and Mike McFerrin and Jeff Kudo, who's my classmate. I can't leave him out. So the old guys can still be productive.
Well, Jeff's coming off a pretty darn good season this past year
Yes,
with the girls
he is.
basketball team.
Yes, he is.
So, and yeah, both Mike McFerrin and Tom Siegfried. It's great to see our coaches working together, and ultimately it's about the kids, right?
It has to be. If you let personal pride into the game, if you're doing it for anybody but the kids, then you're really the wrong person in the market. And that's what I told Terry when she hired me. I said, if you're going to hire me, understand that this is my purpose. And if I'm not filling the purpose, or if I'm doing something which is counter to what Louisville wants, I don't expect to have a job the next day. I said, that's my promise to you. So, yeah, it's got to be all about the girls.
Awesome. Well, Bart, it's great to bring you back to Louisville High School, and really I'm just excited to see the impact you're going to have on our girls golf program, and I really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll be right back.